Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for attending the Driver's License Task Force press conference. I'm going to start off by introducing Commissioner Eileen Higgins to get on the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Frances. Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here today. I love starting off a Monday morning first thing talking about social justice, so this is great. I'm thrilled everyone is here today to talk about a topic that is incredibly important to so many of our residents, and that topic is the shockingly high number of suspended licenses in our county. I began to understand a little bit about the magnitude of this problem a couple of years ago when I was asked to chair a community disparities subcommittee to look at what were structural issues in our community that were holding people back. And Commissioner Barbara Jordan and I were serving on that committee together. As well as our now Mayor, Daniela Levine Cava. But I'll never forget the day when I learned that hundreds of thousands of our residents have suspended driver's license that have absolutely nothing to do with bad driving. For more than half of these people, it really is these suspensions result from unpaid fines and fees. Regrettably, but probably not unexpectedly, the data also showed that the majority of these license suspensions affected lower income zip codes more than they did affluent ones. Now, I don't know about you, but it seems obvious to me that this practice makes no sense. When you take away a person's ability to drive, they can't actually get the high-paying jobs that could help them pay off these fines and fees. And fortunately, our commission was very supportive of me, my colleague, Commissioner Sally Heyman, always on the forefront of trying to push forward new revolutions in the justice system. We came together and we formed the Driver's License Task Force. And that started up. We started meeting early in 2020, I think. Lots of the task force members are here with us today. But we began in a very simple way. We actually just listened to stories from our residents. And I'll tell you a little bit about what they said, right? The system confused them. It was difficult to pay. Daytime in-court appearances cost them time off from work. Frustration was a little high. We didn't have grace periods for missed payments. They could pay off some of their debt, but not everything that they owed. We even met people who had lost their jobs. And these stories were very, very compelling, and I think drove the work of the task force members for 11 months. And the result of that, I think you've got the report out there, is we have a really in-depth understanding of the root causes, but also, more importantly, a roadmap towards the solutions to make the system a little less onerous for our residents. So our task force basically tried to accomplish and is giving us a roadmap to do two things. The first is deal with the backlog, right? We need to help tens of thousands of people who aren't dangerous drivers get their license back and put them on a payment plan that they can afford. The second thing we need to do is just prevent this level of suspensions from ever happening again. And that work will require creating proactive processes, services, payment plans that help people stay in compliance and pay what they owe. Now, underlying all of this is this one assumption that we operated with every single day, and that is we have to keep dangerous drivers off the road. Right? We have to do it, but we have to do it safely. And the second assumption is we have to make sure that the clerk of the court continues to get the revenue it needs to operate smoothly and properly. So today we're going to hear from a number of the task force members and their departments about what they've already accomplished today and what they hope to accomplish in the future. But I just really want to thank every task force member. You'll get introduced, I think, by the mayor. But raise your hand if you served on the task force or helped the task force. So it takes a village. Thank you, everyone. But I also want to thank our sponsors. The work of this task force, you'll notice a common theme in our sponsors. These are all people that recognize that healthy, prosperous families need good jobs, and a lack of a license traps people who aren't dangerous drivers out of those jobs. So many of them are here today. So to Uber, the Miami Foundation, Health Foundation of South Florida, and the United Way, I want to thank you for helping us provide with the resources we needed to make this task force achieve its mission. Nunca olvidaré el día de que me enteré que hay cientos de miles de residentes con licencias suspendidas que no tienen nada que ver con la mala conducción. Para más de la mitad de ellos, la suspensión se debió al impago de multas o tasas. Lamentablemente, los datos muestran que las suspensiones de las licencias afectan a los códigos postales de bajos ingresos, más que varios de altos ingresos. Me pareció obvio que esta práctica no tiene sentido. Cuando a una persona le quitas la capacidad de conducir, le limitas acceso a buenos trabajos que podrían ayudarlos a pagar a estas tarifas. Es por eso fundamos este grupo de trabajo de licencias de conducir. El grupo de trabajo comenzó escuchando las historias de nuestros residentes para escuchar por primera mano los problemas y los malos efectos en su calidad de la vida. El grupo de trabajo sabía que teníamos que lograr dos cosas clave: lidiar con los casos atrasados y evitar las suspensiones del inicio. Importante, todas estas recomendaciones en el informe se hicieron con la suposición de que debemos seguir manteniendo a los conductores peligrosos fuera de las carreteras. Ahora es honor presentar el presidente del grupo de trabajo de licencias de conducir, el juez Steve Leifman. Now I'd like to bring up the wonderful Judge Steve Leifman, who led our task force, to tell a little bit more about the work, the recommendations, and how we'll move forward. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioner Higgins, Mayor Livinkava, Commissioner Hayman, members of the task force, and Harris Levine for his incredible work in helping us get this organized. For those of us who work in this system, quite frankly, it has been years of frustration. And I can't tell you enough and how much we appreciate the mayor and the commissioners taking on this issue. I don't think most people have any idea the impact traffic has on our entire community. Aside from almost 1 million citations being issued each year, the court actually hears over 800,000 cases every single year. And the impact to the entire community has been overwhelming. At the time of this report, we found that there were over 600,000 people with suspended licenses in our community. This often leads to a cycle of despair where people just continue to cycle between criminal justice, the courts, and back again, impacting their jobs, impacting their livelihood, and making it very frustrating to live in our community. And as the commissioner said, it also makes it difficult for them to move up. But this also affects and impacts our entire community, because as a result of having 600,000 suspended licenses, everybody's insurance rates in our communities are through the roof. Because if you're in an accident, you have almost a 50% chance of being involved in an accident with someone not only without a license, but without insurance. So those costs get spread to the people with valid licenses. And so by addressing this issue and trying to fix this issue, which we can do, it's going to help lower our insurance rates. It's going to give people an opportunity to have some hope and real opportunity and to stay out of a system they just don't belong into. Our research found, and the commissioner mentioned this, but 63% of those suspended licenses were directly a result of an inability to pay a ticket. 31% of those suspensions were a result of people failing to come to court. As it turned out, and I think it surprised all of us on the task force, only a very small percentage of these cases had suspended licenses as a result of being a bad or dangerous driver. This really turned out to be an economic issue. And what we realized is that through modernizing our system, using some new technology, and creating a system that's more warm and welcoming for people in our community, we can have a significant impact. And so one of the main recommendations that came out of the task force was to create something called a compliance court. We recognize that it's been very difficult for our community to get access to the court, and we want to change that. And most of the people that are getting arrested for suspended licenses can get their licenses back. And so working with the Miami-Dade Police Department and the Police Chiefs Association, we were thrilled that they voted to help us do a new system. And so when people will get pulled over for a suspended license, if their suspension is solely due to their inability to pay and not because they're a bad or dangerous driver, they'll no longer be arrested. Instead, they will be tracked into this compliance court, where we will work with them, we'll help them get into a fee structure that they can afford, we will help them get out of collections, and we will make it very easy for people to get their licenses back. And that should be the goal for all of us. These are not people committing crimes in most cases. They're just people that are low income that are trying to make it in our community, and we want to give them a hand to do that. And so I'm thrilled to introduce the mayor, who has been incredibly supportive of this initiative. It takes that kind of leadership to really make this kind of change. So thank you all, and it's been a pleasure and a real honor to participate in this task force.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here for this really critically important announcement and the great progress that is being made on this issue. I'm very, very proud of the work of this great task force. They've worked hard over a couple of years, and these recommendations are solid. So we're looking forward to implementing them. After many months of hard work, they've produced a great report. Obviously, they all got together under the leadership of our great commissioner, Eileen Higgins, and joined by the entire commission. Thank you so much to Commissioner Hayman. We have here our former Commissioner, Barbara Jordan, former but in our hearts, and Councilwoman Anna Huckamer from Pinecrest, who is a member of the task force. They're both members of the task force. So this is an urgent, up until now, unaddressed problem. And because of the hard work of this group, we're going to be able to address it, fix it, get people legally back on the road, get them back to work, and move forward with a system that will prevent this from happening in the future. This truly has been a wasteful and broken system, and we can fix it. We can save thousands of jobs, we can improve safety for everyone, and we can help those least able to pay their fines and having growing debt to address their needs as well. So this is a bold step forward, and of course joined by our public defender, Carlos Martinez, representatives of our state attorney's office, Kathy Fernandez-Rundle, and all of the task force members. So as you've heard, the vast majority of these license suspensions are due to failure to pay a fine, not because of driving safety violations. So when people lose their licenses due to fines, they can't pay, they're risking losing how they get to work, they're losing their jobs. This is impacting our entire economy as well as their families. So we're taking these important steps to streamline the system, help the drivers with suspended licenses due to unpaid fines to get back on the road safely, while continuing to keep the dangerous drivers off the road. So this will not affect safety. In fact, it will enhance safety. The stories that we've heard from our residents show just how essential the work of this task force is. And we've heard from people who've lost their licenses because of non-driving related causes as early as in their teenage years. It took them years to get their licenses back. So imagine 5, 7, more years without the freedom to drive in this county. We've heard from people that they're still driving with suspended licenses out of fear and out of necessity. So that is posing a risk, as was described, to accidents happening with people who are uninsured. So, for example, one woman we heard lost her license due to a non-driving related cause. She got pulled over while driving to work, and she spent a night in jail. She was 4 months pregnant. We also heard from an abuelo, a Cuban abuelo, who drove for Uber. He was highly rated, 5,000 five-star reviews, so he was considered a really good driver. But unfortunately, he did receive red light tickets that he did not receive in the mail, so he did not even know that he had those pending. And then he lost his license, it was suspended, and he lost his ability to drive for Uber and his ability to provide for himself and his family. So according to the data, as you've heard, we've got as many as 600,000 people with suspended licenses in Miami-Dade County. That's really incredible. I don't know how many drivers we have, but that's a good percentage of our drivers. And 2/3 of them, it was due to failure to pay a fine, not for a safety issue. And another 1/3, it was failure to appear in court. So not necessarily related to a safety issue at all. Now, if you compare that to the number that actually were suspended for DUI or reckless driving, it's only 3%. Only 3% of that entire group. So the vast majority, it's for non-safety related reasons, as you've heard, with major implications for equity and for our economy. And thanks to the data that's been collected, and you see some great charts here as well, and my office, my data wonks in my office helped tremendously to gather that. We know now that a disproportionate number of the drivers come from low-income zip codes, where residents too often lack the resources needed to repay their debt or to come up with transportation alternatives. So it's especially true for those who lost their job as a result of the license suspension, and they end up in this prolonged cycle, difficult to escape. So it doesn't just impact the drivers, as we've heard. It is having lasting economic impacts. It's harming our local economy, taking people out of the workforce, decreasing our tax revenue, and of course affecting them and their livelihoods. So it's leading to higher car insurance rates for the licensed drivers because the risk has to go somewhere, and driving up the cost for everyone. So we're all working together to save lives, save jobs, and save money for the entire community. So we're going to follow the steps outlined in this task force report, and it's going to help us to pursue economic opportunity for all of our residents. We've identified resources in our upcoming budget to address this need and to create the specialized driver's license compliance court. All right, that's good news. Yay. And this is what's possible when government invests in smart solutions for the community. So again, I want to thank Commissioner Higgins, who really has done an amazing job of leading this effort. And thank you so much, Commissioner Higgins. Yes. And to all of the task force members and chaired by the estimable judge, hundreds of thousands of people are going to receive relief as a result. Estoy muy agradecida con el grupo de trabajo por la suspensión de las licencias de conducir y especialmente el trabajo que ha hecho la comisionada Higgins por su liderazgo en este tema. Según datos oficiales, hay aproximadamente 600,000 licencias suspendidas en Miami-Dade. La gran mayoría de las licencias suspendidas se deben a la falta de pago de una multa, más del 60%, o porque no se presentaron en la corte, 30%, no por violaciones de seguridad vial. En comparación de las 600,000 suspensiones, solo el 3%, muy pocos, fueron suspendidas por un DUI o por conducir de manera peligrosa. Cuando las personas pierden su licencia debido a multas que no pueden pagar, no tienen cómo ir al trabajo y pueden perderlo. Esto no solo afecta a las familias, sino a toda nuestra economía local. Por eso estamos tomando medidas importantes para mejorar el sistema y ayudar a los conductores con licencias suspendidas por dinero, mientras mantenemos alejados a los conductores peligrosos. Gracias a todos. Thank you very much. Very good.
I'll do I'll MC. And Next, we have Harvey Reuven, our Miami-Dade clerk of the courts. And his team was an amazing contributor to this. And as a matter of fact, even before our report was issued, they started to make changes and implement some of the recommendations. So they're already ahead of the curve.
Gonna give her a fist thing, but I figured. Hi, everybody. I just want to first of all start off by saying I am so grateful to every one of you. Sitting there listening to all of this, Steve, you've been amazing as a leader throughout all the administrations. If I'm a little short of breath, I just got over something, but I'm fine, and I might be a little fatigued, so bear with me. I came because I really have some things I want to say. Number one, Madam Mayor, I continue to be impressed to the hilt by the depth and the variety of involvement of your leadership. You're all over the place, but you're not just all over the place, you're all over the place and you're listening and you're working with a great staff, a young staff. So I'm very impressed, and I wanted to make sure I said that publicly to you as a partner. The other elected officials that are here, it's great being part of a team that works. This has been working for some time. There's some history here with that really goes back a long, long time, which I'm going to spare you. But I'll give you a little bit of more recent history. I really should also clarify something for you. You've been over and over saying that people are getting suspended for the payment of fines, for the non-payment of fines. And that's it. That's not true. Most of it is that I'm dealing with, that I've separated out, that I'm going to tell you about, is not fines, it's collection fees. And they're two separate things. Fines and collection fees are under the jurisdiction of the court and are statutory and cannot be waived or cannot be given amnesty or cannot be anything unless by a judge. But collection fees go back, I'll quickly hit some history because the person's name that I'm going to mention, I hope you don't mind my mentioning her, but she should be mentioned every day here. And that's Janet Reno. Janet Reno really cared about the people out there that were hurting. Really cared. And she was amazing. She was a good friend. She was a great racquetball player, Mike. She was a good friend, and when I became clerk, I asked her to chair my transition committee. I'd been a county commissioner for 20 years, had no idea what a clerk does, except as a lawyer, but that's only one little window of it. And she said she would. This was before she got tapped to be Attorney General, about a month before. If I would make one commitment, and that was to aggressively go after the debt that the clerk's office had in past traffic outstanding fines. Huge. It was something like $30–40 million, which in those years was a lot huger than today, unfortunately. All right, so what we did was we hired a lobbyist, we went to Tallahassee, and we got a law passed that allowed clerks statewide to, after 18 months, or I think it's 180 days now, to put uncollected fines after warning on the face of the ticket at every opportunity, that money is now going to be attached. And you now have that debt. So what are we going to do about that? And so we went ahead and went through a process, passed a law, and created the ability for clerks to go to collection agents and charge them up to 40% once notice was clearly given in all the documentation. A 40% increase in what was owed, and that would be their fee. So it wouldn't be any additional cost on any clerk. And it really sounds like cash register justice, but these are people that just have refused to pay. They represent a huge portion of the 62% of the people that you're going to run into that don't have insurance out there on the streets of Miami-Dade County. So how can we deal with that? So we went back and we figured out, let's sit down with our collection agents and do a little negotiation here. How about we suspend it for 2 weeks every year, or give us the right to do that for 2, so we can at least offer these people a way out of this conundrum they're in. There's they owe so much, not just in fines, but in collection fees. So we've had that in place for a while. And what we do is every 2 weeks we have what we call Operation Greenlight. It just concluded. Today, Friday was the last day. So we have the results of this year's Operation Greenlight. I was told that that would be something you'd be interested in. And I will tell you that during this operation, which lasts from the 9th of July to the 18th of July, or the 17th of July, actually, the 18th today is the reporting date. We've had over 4,000 people come in and pay in full all their debt. Okay? We've had another 766 people sign up for the plan that allows them to make payments and keep their debt current. And we've had over 250 licenses that were suspended. And each of those are potential cases where people couldn't get insurance and they were going to end up on the other side of your car. God knows what might have happened to him. I have a neighbor whose grandson has half his skull just taken off. The most amazing little guy. In a car accident, no fault to the driver. Somebody crazy came out of nowhere and just bashed into them. No insurance, no anything, no responsibility. So this is a pathway to help that part of the community that we're all reaching. I just want to make sure we understand how we're reaching them now. So again, let me close. I think I've spoken far too much. It's been a great opportunity working with these people, and not just me, my staff. We have such wonderful people, Steve, you know, in the clerk's office that really care, and they make sure the public knows that we care. And we get done what we can get done, whether it's working in any area. But traffic is a major area where most people grow up. The first name they're going to hear is that of the clerk, that they don't like. That's not a sports figure. So I'm just going to close again, Steve, by thanking you for all you've done. Sally, you've been an amazing leader on the county commission, and you and I got to have lunch soon and some talk.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, and you and I, and what about us?
Today.
We're having lunch today.
Today.
But we're going to have lunch another day.
I can have lunch next week.
Okay, great, wonderful. So thank you very much,
Thank you,
everybody.
Harvey.
My pleasure. Here's a list of the report.
Thanks. Well, and now, thank you very much, Harvey.
Thank you, Janet.
Oh. And I will now invite another great task force member representing the state attorney's office, Elvia Medina Marcus. Remember, I told you that one of our basic assumptions going in is we wanted to clear the backlog and make it easier for people to comply, but we also wanted to make sure we did it safely and that we weren't letting dangerous drivers back on the road. And one of the ways that we ensured that is to make sure that at every meeting we had someone from our state attorney's office there and a representative of the Dade chief. So today we actually have our own Miami-Dade chief of police here with us. But Elvia can talk a little bit about her perspective from the state attorney's point of view.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Elvia Medina Marcus, Chief of the County Court Division for the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office. And just as Commissioner Higgins mentioned, with all these meetings we had throughout the course, we had several goals in mind, both finding a solution to this immense problem, but also not forgetting safety. And that was at the forefront of every discussion and every recommendation that we made, which is a tribute to the task force members and the commissioner, making sure that that was not forgotten, but also part of this discussion in going forward. First, on behalf of State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle and the State Attorney's Office, we would like to thank Commissioner Higgins for her spotlight on this issue. It affects all residents of Miami-Dade County, and as the previous speakers have highlighted, more licensed drivers create safer conditions for everyone in Miami-Dade County. Our office has seen the scope of this problem and recognized this problem, and for years we've tried to incentivize getting out of suspended status and have worked with organizations to help individuals get licenses. We've supported the reduction of DWS arrests by advocating for civil citations for those who have these suspensions stemming from failure to pay and failure to appear. And for years, we've also diverted cases for those facing prosecution into diversion programs, and we have dismissed cases when defendants have obtained good licenses. Our efforts on this front continue with our work with the task force and as an office. We're working with leadership from the Department of Motor Vehicles, DHSMV, to make license reinstatement accessible to all those who are eligible. This collaboration will work towards including the ability to reinstate licenses at our monthly Second Chance community events, which occur throughout Miami-Dade County. We're thrilled to continue the pursuit of increasing the number of licensed drivers on the road by working with all of these community partners on accomplishing these initiatives that have been identified by the task force in our many meetings. Again, we thank the commissioner, we thank all the partners, and we thank the mayor for her support in this great undertaking. Thank you very much.
And now, remember when I told you we started our work with stories? And one of the great storytellers, because he actually helps our residents every day with the impacts of what a suspended license means, is Mr. Mark Mitchell, who is the CEO and founder of Chainless Change. So, Mark, would you come up and give just a little bit of your perspective and the residents' perspective?
Good afternoon or morning. I want to thank, can you hear me? Maybe I have to take this off. I want to thank Commissioner Higgins as well as all of the members of the task force for their efforts. Certainly, the work that was undertaken by the task force will have a positive impact on hundreds of thousands of local residents like me who were impacted by driver's license suspensions for unpaid court debt. It is certainly a great first step, and as I've said in past times and will continue to say, I encourage the commission, I encourage the decision makers in different offices throughout the county to keep on stepping and solution seeking so that we can find long-term solutions for this problem beyond the great work that was undertaken here and the compliance court. 20 years ago, it may have seemed like a great idea to have collections courts or collections companies take over the debt of low-income residents, but not anymore. It's time for smart justice, and I think that we have to actually look toward solutions on a state level as well as a local level. At the state level, ensuring that the courts are funded in ways that do not continue to extract money from our communities. And looking at the local level, it certainly is possible to explore the discretionary fees and eliminate them, as well as just moving away from the practice of utilizing collections companies to force compliance from people who don't have resources in the first place. And so I really think the work that the commission has done, that the task force has done, but I also just want to continue to encourage everyone to continue fighting, continue to look for solutions that won't put more local residents who are already living in poverty at a greater disadvantage. Thanks again so much, Commissioner, task force members, and Judge Leifman for your work.
Thank you, Mark. And Commissioner Hayman, did you want to say a few words, or we yield to the public defender. Sally Hayman yields to the Honorable Carlos Martinez, our public defender.
It was an honor for me to actually serve on this task force. If we go a long way, thank you, Commissioner Higgins, and thank you, Commissioner Hayman. I remember when we were discussing doing the diversion and doing the civil citations for misdemeanors back in 2007, folks. It's 15 years. And here we are 15 years later that we actually moved it to the possibility of driver's licenses. So it's an honor to see that in your last year of service on our commission that this has actually come to fruition. One of the things that Mark said is really critical, and it needs to be reinforced, which is people need to drive to go to work. We want the drivers insured, and guess what? Every single client that I've spoken to that has a suspended driver's license, they want to comply with the law. They just can't because they don't have the money to be able to do it. And there's so many hurdles that were identified in this report that we're going to try to eliminate a lot of those hurdles so that people can actually comply with the law, can actually have reasonable payment plans, and can actually keep up with their driver's licenses. The part that's really important about that is people need to go to work, and we want them to be insured. The more people that are insured, the better off we are all going to be. Also, our residents do not want to be criminals. Yet, with driver's license suspensions, we turn every year tens of thousands of people into criminals because we're charging them with the offense only because they cannot pay for a fee or a cost or collection. And that's a problem. That we're going to have to take care of in Tallahassee. There's a lot of work that we can do locally to prevent people driving with suspended driver's licenses. When these recommendations are implemented, we feel that there are going to be tens of thousands that will reinstate their driver's licenses. And we will have tens of thousands more people in Miami-Dade County that are driving insured. It's been an honor to serve on this, and thank you so much.
Carlos, can you do a
Oh.
little song?
Let me put my paper and do the automatic translation in Spanish. And Spanish is my first language, so I guess I have no excuse. Ha sido un honor como defensor público en esta comunidad que ver que hemos tenido ahora, lo que hemos hecho con este grupo de trabajo es poner unas recomendaciones que vamos a poder implementar y podemos cambiar qué es lo que está pasando en este condado. Hay muchas personas en este condado que están manejando con la licencia suspendida porque ellos no tienen suficiente fondo para pagar lo que deben en la corte, no lo que deben en el alquiler, que ya sabemos cómo están los alquileres, pero es lo que deben, la deuda que le deben a la corte. Y esto, lo que estamos haciendo aquí, es facilitando para personas que puedan pagar regularmente lo que puedan pagar para tener una licencia vigente, que no esté suspendida. Y por eso aquí hemos tenido la ayuda de este grupo de trabajo, que también lo empezó con la comisionada Higgins y también con nuestra alcaldesa, que ella ha puesto, no solamente ha puesto esto, pero también han puesto dinero en el próximo presupuesto. Hay dinero para poder facilitar estas recomendaciones y para poder ayudar a miles y miles de personas en este condado que estén manejando con una licencia que no está suspendida y lo más importante para todos nosotros, que estén manejando con seguro de automóvil. Ha sido un placer y un honor servir en este grupo de trabajo. Muchas gracias.
All right, Commissioner Hayman, you really, okay, I knew you would want to say something. See, my partner on this project.
Now, thank you, Commissioner Higgins. And I want to share with all of you how important it was that I wanted to be here in reference not only to a fabulous program, but a fabulous collection of champions for our community, especially in the criminal justice system. I've had the privilege of working with them before I even got to be commissioner or state representative. And thank you, Harvey, for taking us through history with a lot of us, from Janet Reno and you, of course, to then Assistant Public Defender Carlos Martinez and the other champions on the bench and off. It is a great criminal justice system, and I have to tell you, on the outside, and then as a legislator and commissioner and champion in the criminal justice system, we have been at the forefront, Miami-Dade County, in so many different ways. Not on tough on crime, but on just. And when it came to prioritizing public safety, we fought to maintain our home rule responsibilities so we could be flexible on state law when it wasn't working for Miami-Dade, its people, and our progression. Commissioner Higgins grabbed hold of one area that has been so void of common sense for so long for so many of us in the trenches. It's dictated by state rule, but our home rule allows flexibility. So when we have champions in every component, from starting with police through prosecution and defense, our courts, our clerk system, on board of what can we do to correct within the limits of our laws, they seized it. They have on a collection court when it was a small fee, then getting rid of it when it became too big, and alternatives, and right down the line. This is the last component on keeping people out of the criminal justice system without an arrest if they don't deserve it. It doesn't serve our jails or the community well. We've seen the benefit of resolving this and putting them back on a positive path. So, Commissioner Higgins, applause to you. This shows the efforts not just on the forefront, but a continuum of staying focused on what's going to work, collaborative effort by everybody, from the mayor's office and administration to my legislative colleagues and our criminal justice system, starting with the courts. I can't wait to see the first in the nation compliance court, and thank you to the task force. You all came up with great, wise suggestions we're going to be smart enough to implement. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, everyone. Just as a note, there's 2 items on tomorrow's commission meeting around this. The first is the acceptance of the recommendations of this task force and some urgings to the mayor to fund some of this work. That item talks about everything we can do locally. We also have an item that has a number of urgings to the state of Florida. In some cases, we are restricted by state law. There's a few things that, again, we think if the state makes some changes, we can also safely help the residents of this community. So those 2 items are on the agenda tomorrow, and I'm expecting that they're going to be approved. So, and we're all here for any questions, should anyone have one. And then we'd like, yes, I'd like to do a group picture. Task force members, all of our funders and sponsors, the clerk, Chief Harris, come on up. We'll do a group picture. And then we can do, I don't know how we'll do this. We'll move this out of the way now. Yeah. Okay.